Staff Hearing Officer for today's meeting, July 1st, 2009. We have an agenda prepared for today, and the first item on the agenda is to consider whether there are any changes to the agenda. And I believe there are none. Okay. Any announcements and appeals? Staff, do you have any announcements? I will make an announcement. I was informed that a decision from the last meeting regarding a performance standard permit for a medical marijuana dispensary in the 500 North Milpas area was appealed. So that matter was approved here at the Staff Hearing Officer and will now be considered by the Planning Commission. So that's the one announcement that I have. The next item is whether it's a general public comment. Would anyone in the audience like to make a general public comment? And that would be not pertaining to the applications, but okay, seeing no one, we'll move into the projects. Our first project, A, is at the property of 217 Conejo Road. We'll first hear a staff report from Ms. Malazzo.
Project site, just under 2 acres in size, has frontage onto Conejo Road with the development proposed up here. Large lot with a small amount of frontage on Stanwood. Need a microphone. Okay, thank you. I'll just start over. Subject site is just under 2 acres, located on Conejo Road, irregular shaped, with small amount of frontage here on Stanwood. The proposed development involves the rebuild of a residence destroyed in the recent Tea fire. The proposed residence, like the previous one, is asking to be situated 25 feet from the front lot line instead of the required 35 foot. There's a small amount of expansion shown here in the pink that is also being added at that 25-foot distance. The only exception to that is a small bridge that leads out of the house into a flat area that's going to be used for just yard space. When staff considered the modification, we first of all considered the rebuild and the rebuild provisions of the non-conforming, the steep topography, which limits the areas where construction is possible, and the fact that they're reusing the area that was previously used. Staff is asking for approval of this project with the additional amount of encroachment, with just one condition, that the one of the 2 laundry facilities in the house be withdrawn. That's just with consistency with our policies for concerns with illegal dwelling units. We typically only permit 1 laundry room per single-family residence.
Thank you, Ms. Malazzo. I'd just like you to know that I did visit the site yesterday, and I reviewed your application materials. But if you'd like to identify yourself and make any comments, you're welcome.
Bill Wolf with Pacific Architects. I think Roxanne's done a fantastic job of representing what we're trying to portray here. Essentially, the house, we're sitting on the pad that was there. There is not a lot of other areas where a home could go at this point without doing substantial grading. So that was kind of the decision to keep it where it was. Previous modification, as we found in the records, allowed the setback, and so we kind of maintained that. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up a public hearing. This is the property at 217 Conejo Road. Is anyone present would like to make comments on this application? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Like I said, I did visit the site yesterday, and the pad, it's all very obvious and makes sense that that would be the site for rebuilding. Also, the zoning ordinance allows, when you have a steep sloping front yard, an automatic 5-foot reduction. So really, this is anticipated. I definitely agree with this.
Not in this zone, though.
In the A1, that doesn't?
No.
Oh. Well, anyway, it's a good idea that we have in the zoning ordinance that, there's all these technicalities. So you definitely need the mod, but I think that the site topography certainly supports that prior construction and a very minor adjustment to the building footprint and construction. So I concur with the staff recommendation, approve your modification today. I do need you to know that all decisions of the staff hearing officer are appealable within 10 calendar days. And the Planning Commission also has an oversight in that they could pull up any items. They've been monitoring and reviewing the T-Fire rebuilds, and I don't really expect significant concern on their part, but they are monitoring the projects, and so just so you know. But as we were discussing earlier this morning, this project did require review by the single-family board, but if that review is completing at a consent or admin level, that's great. That's also something we've done with the T-Fire. And then you can submit to the building permit process, and Roxanne is your main contact.
Great. Okay. Yeah, no, I think we've gotten final approval from SFDB pending this.
Okay.
Bill Mahan said staff could approve based on the comments that he had, so we're going to make those additional notes on the plan, and we'll submit it in the building with a risk, obviously, of 10 days.
Okay. I think the plan check will take a little bit longer than 10 days.
Yeah, well,
okay.
definitely.
All right. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Our next item is 900 Las Alturas. Does the applicant like to come up? We'll begin with a report from this morning.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to try to set this under here like that. Center it. All right. Thank you. Okay, this subject site, just under 20,000 square feet in area, located here on Las Alturas, steeply sloped down.
Yeah.
Also involves a residence that was destroyed by the recent T-Fire, and is also proposing a rebuild in pretty much the existing footprint. However, they are moving at about 16 feet, what would this be, like to the north, in order to lower the visual height of the residence from the street. The proposed house will be approximately 2,000 square feet. It is 3 stories, but only the upper 2 will be visible from the street, with a 400 square foot garage. This house, like at its time of original construction in 48, and then after the Coyote Fire and the Sycamore Fire, has always required modifications to be rebuilt pretty much right at the front lot line. There's significant constraints. As you can see here, here's the 35-foot front yard setback. At this point, the property is dropping off. So the development envelope has been established by the topography of the site. Staff feels this is an appropriate improvement and an appropriate location for the rebuild to occur, and is asking for approval of this project as submitted, with the condition that a zoning compliance declaration be recorded for the property. Due to a lower floor plan configuration here that has exterior access and full bathing facilities. That's just consistent with our policies in protection of illegal dwelling unit use.
Thank you. I did visit the site yesterday and had an opportunity to meet with one of the owners, so that was really helpful in looking at the project. I'm not sure if he shared that with you.
He did mention it. I
Okay.
showed up just after you left.
Okay. I haven't had a chance to mention it to Roxanne. But anyway, what I've found, too, is that really one of the reasons for moving the building back is to have a little bit more driveway space. This road, there's no on-street parking. Parking's really constrained. And just having a little more paving and allowing backup and different things like that, this room seems to be really appropriate. And then, as you mentioned, the road goes up, so this actually is lowering the height here. There was a landscape architect, Bob Cunningham, out there, too, when we were there. And I'm not sure, we looked at this little concrete spot there, and I don't know if there's still a 16-inch oak.
Well, this
in that.
is an older site plan.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
just gotten the actual CAD survey.
So what you'll be submitting for actual drawings will be quite different from this? then?
It'll actually be the trees that did survive the fire, and there's
Okay.
a few palms and some oaks that did survive the fire and
Okay.
are coming back right now. So
Okay.
his landscape plan, when we go for preliminary and final from single-family design, will show
Okay.
the...
Yeah, that's not of significant concern. It's just that the site is, they are so disturbed that our records aren't always exactly, yeah.
No, this was
Right.
the site plan for the previous house.
Okay. Anyway, if you'd like to identify yourself as the applicant and provide any additional comments.
I'm Rex Struskoff. I'm the architect for Rick Garcia and Laura Knight, who are the owners of the house, and Roxanne did a good job of presenting it. We are looking at this area in terms of being able to get the cars turned around and head out because it does come around a turn and a downhill here. And we'll also be working with transportation on that entry. There is a neighbor here. I'm not sure he wishes to speak or not, but
Well, I'll hold a public hearing. The one thing that was pointed out to me, there's a pink marker on the site that denotes the property line, and that I had a question about the big, columns, the gate.
let's turn it the same way so we're
Okay.
oriented the same.
I just wanted the property owner to know about the height limitations for walls, fences, gates, et cetera,
Yeah.
along the front property line.
This is that wall you're speaking of.
Right.
This is that large palm that was next
Right.
to it. And the
That's the pink dot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we are looking at how we're going to access the site
Mm-hmm.
without utilizing, for 35 years, 40 years, it's kind of clipped the corner of our neighbor's property. So
Mm-hmm.
we're working with transportation to come up with a resolution here. For sightline reasons, and we've been looking at it, we want to keep it to this point here. Because as you come around this way, you start to have this tree blocking you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working with transportation on that, and we are going to eliminate that wall. in
Right,
Rochester.
good. And then any new walls or plantings that would comply with the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
And again, I think this is a really good demonstration of why, for visibility coming in out of a difficult driveway. Okay, all right, well, thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. This is the project at 900 Las Alturas. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? Okay.
We do have,
Okay, I should acknowledge, we did receive a letter for this application, probably one for the one prior to. The letter is from Paula Westbury. She's a resident that carefully monitors the development activity in our community. And the modification is carrying on the land's needs. The house doesn't fit on the lot. It's unsuitable. She's often concerned about development, and so it appears that she has concerns about this proposal as well. Let me think. The modification is for the adjustment of the structure in its prior non-conforming location to be adjusted to the northerly direction, and that's the full extent of the mod. I concur with the staff's recommendations and recommended findings. I think modification is clearly supported here as we've been considering the T-fire situation. We fully expected people to take advantage of their non-conforming situations and on steep lots, rebuilding where the construction has historically been. However, also looking at the possibility of making improvements. And because of the nonconformancies, almost any improvement is going to require, in many cases, it's going to require a modification like this. So I concur with the staff recommendation to approve your modification today. All modifications acted on here are appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. They're also monitoring they have an ability, the Planning Commission, to pull something up if they feel that it raises a concern that requires their review. And then you mentioned you're in the process for design review and then onto the building.
Yes.
So did you have any other questions? You understand the zoning declaration? Your clients?
For the
Okay.
single-family dwelling.
It says that this is a one-family dwelling.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. The next item, 507, Conejo?
So subject to condition that I don't see one.
Hi.
Just remember.
Good morning. Public comment on this one, too.
Okay, thanks.
Good morning. Okay. This project site, 7,500 square foot lot, has, let's give you a full picture here, frontage on both Conejo Road and Conejo Lane. It is also a property where the residence was lost to the recent T fire. This is a proposed replacement of the previously existing home in its existing location, as well as the previously existing garage. Access is here off Conejo Lane. On the rebuild, though, the owner is wishing to change the roof pitch from a hip to a gable. That'll allow for the tile roof that he is proposing. There's a minor window change here in the house and a front porch, which is just an architectural element being proposed here on the front. This is within the front yard setback, and this alteration, as well as the increase in roof height, are alterations within the existing interior setback and require modification approval. It's staff's position that these are just upgrades that are part of the rebuild to make the house better than the one that previously existed. There's no additional encroachment of floor area, no intensification or impacts to the adjacent neighbors. Staff is asking for approval of this modification as it's submitted.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Milazzo. I visited the area a couple of times now since the fire, but yesterday, and had a look at your property. So if you'd like to identify yourself and make any comments,
Excuse
or
me.
not.
I'm Bezat Masuman. I'm the owner of the property, and she did an excellent job, representing my case.
Okay.
I don't know what to say.
Okay. Well, let's see. The next thing we'll do is a public hearing, then I might have a question for you. Okay. So this is 507 Conejo Road. We did receive a letter from Paula Westbury regarding your project. She's a resident that watches all the projects here. She's concerned about the history of the property and the people that lived here before. She means a long time ago, like native people. And she's very concerned about any impact on the land. I was curious, and I think I understand why, because this is a picture of your property and here's the former garage, but of just taking the opportunity to make your garage a little bit bigger. So, because it's very difficult to park two cars in there and you have a small home, just was thinking it would be nice to have a garage so you'd have room for your cars and maybe even room for a little bit other.
I love, as I told Roxanne, I love to do that, but I think for having the garage 2 feet, wider, it's going to cost me a lot of money to tear up the thing and put caissons in, because they don't let us, to put.
Even for a garage?
Exactly, for the garage.
Oh.
And actually, we had the permit for the garage before the T fire.
Oh, you were going to make it bigger?
No. We're going to rebuild it because,
Oh.
the walls, they're very holding on, I bought this property like on August of 2008. And as I bought it, I got a violation for it, because of the walls of the garage. And so I
A
went
building
through-
violation? They were
Exactly.
concerned about the safety of the garage, yeah?
So I had to rebuild it.
I
So
see.
actually I submit the plan and I got a permit for it like a week before T-fire happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just want to do those same very plans?
Exactly.
I see.
And
Okay.
because of the cost.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
we're talking about
Were you able to park two cars in it?
Actually, I didn't live in the house because
Oh.
I just bought the house.
Oh,
you know.
okay.
But
Well, I
it's-
think if
we
you have a small
two
car.
small
Yeah,
cars. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. All right. Well, I think this is a modest improvement. Essentially, you're rebuilding as you're allowed to do and making an improvement. Because your neighbors above are quite a bit above, I don't see that the roof change is really going to have any negative effects. There's going to be so much rebuilding in your neighborhood. I'm sure it'll be a nice project. So I concur with the staff recommendation and approve your modification today. So the process is there is an appeal period, 10 days, where decisions can go to the Planning Commission. But we're not suggesting you would need to wait out that period. Just keep progressing with Ms. Milazzo as your contact.
so just one more question.
Okay.
What's the next step right now?
Is it just to the building permit process?
Yeah.
I don't have
You've-
to go to single
Have
family.
you, okay, what is the, I'm sorry, let me, yes, you are subject to single family. Let me see what their comments were.
Continued indefinitely. So on consent, probably?
Yes, you'll go back on consent for your final approval. So you are able to submit for that
Okay.
application right now. Tell them you got your modification and you'd like to get on for final. The project
would
has not
be-
changed
yeah.
from what they saw, so they have the accurate plans. And once you get a final approval, you'll submit for your building permit.
And that's probably on consent, right? It wasn't your full board, you went just to the smaller meeting? Yeah.
went consent.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
This is it?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, our next application is 312 Sherman. Okay, we'll begin with a report from Ms. Milazzo.
Thank you. Project site, a little over 10,000 square feet, is located on Sherman Road. Sherman Road is a part of a subdivision in 1976, and at the time of the subdivision, a blanket modification was given to 4 of the parcels on this side of the street to only require 10-foot front and 8-foot interior yards. That was due to the steep slope constraints, and the Planning Commission, or actually it was the Board of Land Use Controls at that time, realized that we needed to keep the construction up here close to the road. This house, like the others that we've seen this morning, was lost during the recent T fire, and this is a rebuild of a new residence on the property. There are changes from the previous development, including shifting the garage that previously existed here across the lot to this side at the 10-foot setback that it previously existed at. Parts of the residence are removing encroachment from this setback and situating it elsewhere. Although staff typically has problems or concerns with allowing rebuilds with small setbacks, we did have to take into consideration the previous modification that did allow for these small setbacks. The property is zoned A1, so current development standards would require 15 feet. So staff is able to support that modification as well as the front. The encroachment here on the side, we see the house is being pulled out of the setback even further than what previously existed, and is actually observing the required 15-foot setback. However, they've asked for a wider than required garage to permit a workshop or workbench area. Staff is asking that that be removed from the property, although garages are good neighbors. The accessory use, it could be a noise generator, really should observe the setback. So the project, as it's designed, we are asking for approval of, with the recommendation that just the portion of the garage used for a workshop be pulled over to observe the 15-foot setback. I mean, there's probably some pretty simple ways to get a workshop or bench inside the garage, but just not in that interior setback.
Okay, thank you. I visited the site yesterday and I've reviewed the application materials, which included this aerial photo of the development before the fire. So one of the things that I was reading from the plans is you've just explained that some of this outline showed where the building was before and then the garage moving. And so I think what this looked like to me was this was the side that had the 8-foot setback, and it almost looked like the 15-foot setback was in compliance, but not exactly, because you see this here? So there was some encroachment into the 15-foot setback, and I think I could kind of see it on this drawing. That was probably where, but it wasn't down to the minimum 8 that the record showed. So, but they actually ended up with a modification on both sides. Okay, and then either you can explain this or the applicant. I'm just curious about the garage relocation. What the reasoning behind that. I did read the letter generally about the just massing and architectural interest, but I'd like to hear about
Yes.
your intent behind the project. So if you would identify yourself and
I'm Daphne Romani Drew, and I'm the architect for the owner. And this is Nell Slack. She's the owner, or one of the owners. When I received the project, when I started working with Nell, most of the residence was already designed from a previous designer. But the intent behind relocating the garage is basically to gain better access to it from the street. I believe due to the elevation. This
was
area,
steeper.
yes, and so that's one of the main considerations. In reviewing the staff
also
report,
it kind of opens up light towards the
Right.
entry. was
Yes.
the
We
thing.
find that previously in the house, excuse me, Daphne, we didn't really have any area we could sit where we got any sun at all, because the sun is usually coming either in this direction or this direction. So we wanted to have a little patio area where we could actually sit out in the sun at some point during the year.
Okay.
and in reviewing the staff report, we don't see a major problem with narrowing the garage. However, we would like the officer to consider the option of perhaps leaving a foot in the offset of the plane, because it allows for more articulation and interest on the facade of the building. And we are changing the material, the finished material from plaster to brick veneer, and it would allow for a smoother transition of material at that location if there was at least some offset.
Oh, I forgot. I had a question, too, about the stairway. Because that follows the grade down, that's not considered an encroachment. Is that correct? Okay. And then often, we look carefully at the windows and openings in an area that's an encroachment. And so for this side with the garage, there is no opening.
Correct.
But
other
the
than-
space below,
It's a mechanical space because the grade drops so dramatically. There's enough room to
for understory?
locate. Yes,
Okay. And so you're showing a break here
correct.
just at the garage?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. All right, would you like to explain anything else before I open the public hearing?
No, I think that was
Okay.
it.
I'll open a public hearing on this project, and seeing no one. However, I do believe we probably have a letter from Paula Westbury.
Right here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the name.
She's a longtime resident, and she monitors all the development activities.
Oh,
She's
okay.
very
Okay.
concerned about development in our community.
Okay.
Her common theme is that the project should not be built.
Okay.
She's concerned about building in general.
Even when your house is burned down?
Yeah, do you want a copy of the letter?
That would be
You can have
great,
this
thank
one.
you.
Sure. Okay. So, like I said, I visited the site and read your letter and thought about this, and I think the garage shift, it's not even though it's an important change, given the historic pattern of the development in the area, that's appropriate. The 8-foot setback Again, I also read a letter that suggested that these modifications wouldn't be needed. I think that they really are. It's a very case by case, these modifications. They don't really change the zoning like across the board forever. The projects are reviewed and they're documented as to what the setback was approved, and so then changes from there we need to consider as a change, as something different. So I understand that you didn't necessarily have that same opinion, but here you are. So you are following our requirements. So I appreciate that we told you that was necessary. I just wanted you to know that I also agree that it's necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, on the 8-foot, the change is, again, there's a little bit of a reduction of building mass from what was there before, but it's a remodel, and so there's also new area. But it seems like it's almost a wash, you know. Again, we anticipate that people will want to make improvements like the sunlight and all that. That totally makes sense. So has your project been reviewed? It was reviewed by the Single Family Board, right?
Correct.
Okay, I think I had. They haven't been making that many comments to me, to the staff hearing officer. So what did this one say?
I believe
It's in the last, yeah.
Yeah.
Page 3, yeah.
The increase is mostly understory. Okay, so they are interested in the massing in the garage also. So I tend to agree with you that I'd like you to have some leeway with the single family board to see if a minor encroachment there is acceptable just for architecture, because it is a solid garage wall. So I think you could go back to them with that also. And in a spirit of compromise, see if a
Yes.
1-foot shift works.
Okay.
Okay. And then the rest of the home on this side is actually being pulled back a little bit from where it was before. So I find your proposal acceptable and approve your modification request today with direction to the applicant and to the Single Family Board to consider having a lesser encroachment of the garage, just the minimal amount needed for an architectural massing.
Perfect.
Okay. Right, so all decisions made here today are appealable within 10 calendar days to the Planning Commission. But as you may have heard on the other items, we're encouraging applicants to continue with your
Okay.
process, and so you would go back to the Single Family Board with your final drawings or consent.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
There's your copy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, we have another modification, and this is, I think it's 516 Salsipuedes?
Yes.
No, 8, sorry, I made that up. 819 North Salsipuedes. I'm sure there's a 516 project somewhere.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay, we'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you. A 6,750 square foot multifamily residential lot, Salsipuedes here, has previously been approved for complete demolition of the structures that existed and the construction of 2 new single-family residences with a driveway here up to a 3-car carport. During site preparation, it was noted that the existing retaining wall along this southern property line was substandard, had major problems, and had to be completely demolished and rebuilt. Now, the general provisions section of the code allows for replacement of damaged, non-conforming walls as long as the reconstruction portion does not exceed 10% in any given year. This project is replacing the wall in its entirety, and therefore it needed a modification approval to proceed. So construction's been stopped, and the modification's being processed to rebuild the wall along the property line. On this side view, you can see that within the first 20 feet along the driveway, the height of the retaining wall plus a guardrail due to the difference in grade changes between the properties. As you come down South Cipuedes, the lots are stepped. This one probably sits a good 10 feet lower than the house on the adjacent lot. So the accumulation of the retaining wall, needing to retain the wall, plus a fence on top for safety purposes, is asking to be 10 feet up here, 9 feet, and then 8 feet within the 20-foot area that only allows a wall of 3.5 feet. This modification is technical in nature. It doesn't violate the purpose or intent of the ordinance. Although we understand as you exit the driveway, you have blocked visibility. That's due to the grade of the lot next door. It's not due to the obstruction that's requesting modification approval. So we're asking to approve this modification in order to allow the appropriate improvement, which is a driveway, which now provides parking on a lot that previously did not have any. We're asking for approval of this project as submitted.
Okay. Did I review this project for modification originally?
did.
Okay, that's what I thought.
As you can see, there's 3 parking
Right.
spaces for the new 2 units. So
Yeah.
they got a parking mod and the location of
In the
carport
setbacks.
in
That's
the
what I
setback.
thought. I just don't have a super clear memory of the wall condition before. Did you happen to bring any prior photos?
Well, they were really difficult to see, but I do have some old photos, and I
Okay.
think this is from the front. And the wall is kind of like buried under this
I see.
hedge that's very, very dense and been there for a long time.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I have any, I don't know if there are any photos in there that show that. But let me see if I have one.
I think it strikes me that this is much more of a new wall than really a repair of a. I mean, did it exist in this fashion, really? The whole length, this kind of height? and
Well, it
everything?
was kind of like a rubble wall in some place. It looked like something that somebody did themselves over a period of time.
Uh-huh.
So it never would have been permitted, I'm sure. But at the front, the very front of the property, which I think you can see, can you see this retaining wall
Yes,
here?
mhm.
See, they have done that along here, and then it returns just
Right,
a couple of
just a
feet.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and we're pretty much following that.
Uh-huh. On your own property.
Right.
Okay. Do you think that there is any opportunity to keep the height and the grade down this knoll, or you just don't think it's worth it?
I mean, we're right coming, you have to see that this street is very, very
Yes.
steep this
Uh-huh.
way. And then the side goes that way, and then we have this property that's up
Right,
there.
right.
All existing conditions.
So you've
that
done
I'm
it
dealing
at
with.
minimal height that you
Oh,
actually
absolutely, yeah.
think you can do?
Yeah, and this was really the only place the driveway could
Right.
enter the site, because I did look at entering here, but the street is even steeper, and it's a worse condition there, so.
We probably have solar considerations and other things too.
Oh, everything.
So, I mean, I remember the project from before. I just didn't. It being overgrown, we probably didn't really see it.
And bottom line, I mean, you can see what was there before. There was this house, and then in the back, there was this really terrible, broken-down old thing. And
Yeah.
it was a fire trap, and as a matter of fact, they had the fire department come out and do some test fires. Use this as a...
That's a training ground.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so
okay.
now, what they're trying to do is replace it with 2 rental units in a community that has these.
Right, and I
kinds of
supported the
houses.
project absolutely before. It's definitely an improvement. And then the rest of the wall is all within the 8-foot maximum.
Correct.
Okay, so
And, it changes as the driveway goes up.
Yeah.
That's what's dictating this slope, is the slope of the driveway. It's
Right.
supposed to be a maximum of 16.
so all the permits have been issued.
Oh,
Otherwise,
yes.
and you're
Yeah, we have a building permit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There's no one in the room for this item, so I'll open and close the public hearing on 819 North South Cipuedes. And I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance to identify yourself.
Oh, I'm Ron Sorgman, the architect.
Thank you. Okay. Site retention and a driveway are necessary improvements for your project, so I concur with the staff's recommendation and findings and approve the modification today. And then, as I've been saying all morning, all decisions here are appealable within 10 calendar days. So you could still go ahead and submit the revision to the building office. We'll let
Right.
you know if any concern comes up.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Rose, for all your help.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have one last item, but we'll take a short break before we begin that one. Thank you.
Oh, my darlings. I'm so happy you're here. I'm happy I'm here. Happy I'm still alive. You know.
First, staff hearing officer, and our last item of today is 505 Wentworth Avenue. We'll begin with a staff presentation from Kelly Broadison. I may have a question or two, and then the applicant, you can make your presentation. Okay, Kelly?
Okay, good afternoon. Kelly Broadison, Assistant Planner. The project I'm representing today is a request to construct a 2-story, 3-unit condominium development. The 6,500 square foot project site is currently vacant and is located at 505 Wentworth Avenue. I'm going to open it a second. On the city's west side between West Coda and Coronel Place. The site is in the R3 zone, and the general plan land use designation is residential, 12 units per acre. This area of the city is developed with a mix of single-family and multifamily residential. The site is directly across the street from a small city park, and Santa Barbara City College and Pershing Park are also in the vicinity. The application required today, or requested, is a tentative map for a 1-lot subdivision to create 3 residential condominium units. The proposed building would be 2 stories with a maximum height of 24 feet 6 inches. And the proposed unit mix is comprised of 1 one-bedroom unit and 2 two-bedroom units, ranging in size from 847 square feet to 985 square feet. Each unit will also have a 2-car garage on the ground floor. Although it's been a little more than a year since the project was last seen at the ABR, the project was reviewed 3 times. Each time the project returned, the applicant responded to the board's concerns by removing the tower elements, reducing the second-story massing, stepping the second floor back to provide a better street relationship, and providing a street presence at the front of the unit. Subsequent to today's meeting, the project will return to full board for further refinements. This project was also evaluated for compliance with Santa Barbara Municipal Code 271306, which has to do with physical standards for new condominium development. And they're providing separate utility meters, outdoor living space, individual parking spaces, separate laundry utilities, etc. And it also was reviewed for compliance with the general plan. This project is also required to comply with the newly revised inclusionary housing ordinance. New construction of fewer than 10 units is subject to the inclusionary housing ordinance fee of $18,000 per unit. However, for projects of less than 5 units, the first unit is exempt from the fee. Therefore, you'd only have to pay the fee for 2 units, $18,000 each. In addition, because these units are small, less than 1,100 square feet, the in lieu fee is reduced by an additional 25%. Therefore, the requirement for the inclusionary housing fee for this project is $27,000. In conclusion, this project conforms to the city's zoning and building ordinances and the policies of the general plan, and the size and massing of the project are consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. Therefore, staff recommends that the staff hearing officer make the findings stated in the staff report and approve the tentative subdivision map subject to the conditions of approval contained in Exhibit A. We received 1 letter from an interested party expressing concerns on the project. And we're also removing some conditions of approval. Condition A1, usable common open space, which states adequate usable common open space shall be provided in a location accessible by all units within the development. We're deleting that because that's a basic requirement already in the ABR.
You already are doing that.
They're already doing that. And then we're also removing condition B6E, which states that any gates that have the potential to block access to any designated commercial space shall be locked in the open position, because that does not apply because this is not a commercial project. That concludes staff's presentation for right now.
Thank you. I'd like you to know that I reviewed the staff report materials, the plans, and I visited the site yesterday. So I have a pretty good understanding of the project, but it's now to you if you'd like to present it or ask any questions. Please identify yourselves.
Jose Luis Esparza, I'm the owner. And
Architect.
You're the
I'm
architect.
sorry,
He's
the
owner.
architect. And Mark Jacobson, the owner.
Okay.
I only had one comment in reading through the conditions. Condition C6 states that 261 feet of linear feet of sidewalk, 6-foot wide sidewalk, is to be.
Oh, is that a typo?
No, 26 linear feet.
Oh,
26, and the L is linear feet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe I should spell that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's sidewalk in your frontage.
Yeah.
Your property.
That's
Yes.
what we're. Okay. Thank you
Okay.
for the clarification.
Okay.
No further comment.
Okay. Okay. Would you
Good.
like to make any comments?
No, I'll decline.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and open a public hearing. We see no one in the audience today. We did receive the one letter, and we gave your architect a copy of that. So I'll close the public hearing. Okay, in my review of the project, I was happy to see actually the discussion of that inclusionary fee recognized, because I've been following it, but I didn't get the final details, that it recognized a discount for smaller units. We've just held a community discussion trying to encourage people to build just this type of project. So I was very happy to see moderately sized units that will, I think, just provide an opportunity probably for first-time home ownership and the like. And so the city is facing a difficult problem with affordable housing, so we're looking for projects to contribute. And so I think you're contributing in two ways. One, by building this project, and then with your reduced fee. So I thought that was all good. This is the first project I've seen that on.
Yep.
Have you had any others?
I think this is the first one where the newly revised inclusionary housing ordinance is being applied, as far as I know.
Okay, great.
So it has been approved?
It's been approved.
Yes, yeah. And we did get an opinion from the city attorney that even applicants who had come in some time ago, your project hadn't been approved yet. So that's why today it's in effect, and that's why we're imposing it on the project, even though I know you started a long time ago. But that was something that the council and the city attorney made clear when they did it. So it does
But you
apply.
guys knew it was coming.
I think we gave advice because we've seen it coming for a while. Okay, well, with the changes to the conditions that the staff had, deleting condition A1 and B6E, and then that clarification, you're fine. Should we spell out linear
Yes,
feet there?
I have a note to myself.
Okay, in condition C6, it says approximately 26 LF. We'll spell out the LF to say linear feet.
Yes.
Okay, did you have something else?
This needs to just
Just a typo?
space. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, with that, I concur with the staff recommendation, approve your 3-unit condominium project today. All decisions made by the staff hearing officer are appealable to the Planning Commission. We have a 10-day appeal period. Also, the Planning Commission has an oversight review. They have a liaison. I'll be reporting to her the outcome of the meeting, and if for any reason, important reason, they believe that they needed to review the project, we would let you know. But otherwise, you'd go back to the ABR. You haven't been there in a while.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a concern, but I see that you can readily address their issues. So that would be your next step.
Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we conclude today's meeting. Thank you all.